Okay, so welcome everyone, I'm Emma and today we're going to be working on this little project here. We're making a coaster. So as you can see, we've already drawn our design out on our pre-cut piece of wood, which is a nice size for a coaster, and we're just going to be using 12mm vitrified glass tiles in these nice vibrant retro colours to go with our 1960s inspired design. So the glue we're going to be using today is this Red Label waterproof PVA. It's strong and hard wearing for internal and external use. So to start off with, I'm just going to put a simple line of glue down the middle of the design. Not too much glue, just enough to stick the tiles, because you don't want it squeezing through the gaps when you're placing your tiles down. And then we're just going to take the tiles one piece at a time and place them into the glue. Okay, so I've now stuck as many whole pieces as I can. So I'm now going to cut some tiles into the shapes that I need. So whenever I'm cutting any tiles, always make sure I wear my safety goggles. And I just take my cutters and I'm just going to cut the little shapes. And then make sure you've got glue in those areas. You can take your goggles off once you've done your cutting. Reapply some glue. Tiny bit more glue for that one. Where that's going in a smaller space, I'm just going to put that directly on the back.
What do people do, Emma, if they don't have nice long nails like yourself?
If you don't have nice long nails, you can use some tweezers to move your tiles around. But I find my nice nails are much easier to use, and much quicker. Okay, so I've got my outline shape, and now I'm going to use these nice orange tiles for the background. First of all, I'm going to put a perimeter around the edge of the design, and then we're just going to fill the rest in using broken pieces. Okay, so now I'm just going to put my glue around the perimeter edge of the design. just so that the mosaic has a nice finish, nice neat edge. There we are. There. So that's those nice and neatly around the edge, and now I'm just going to fill that in with some broken pieces. So I'm going to put my goggles back on to cut some pieces up.
What sort of shapes will you cut for that, Emma?
So I'm just going to cut these into random shapes. So triangles. Where I can, I'll still use the whole tiles and just fit them in. But just for some of these more awkward spaces in here, we're going to need triangles and other little random shapes. I was trying to get in there already. Apply our glue. I'm just going to take our cut pieces, lay them out nicely so you can see what shapes you're working with. I'm just going to place them in there and do some whole squares still as well where you can. I'm just going to fill that shape in nicely. So that's all the mosaic pieces placed now onto the project. We're now just going to leave that to dry overnight for 24 hours. And then once it's set, we can grout it. Okay, so it's now the next day. All our pieces are dry on our mosaic coaster, and now we're ready to grout. So all you need for grouting is, of course, your powdered grout, a mixing pot that you can use, a spoon or something to obviously mix it with. You can use a stick. I'm going to be using a grout float squeegee, but you can use an old credit card, a spatula. For small projects like this, you can even just use your hand on it. And of course, you'll notice I'm wearing some rubber gloves. That's just to protect my hands because the grout can be a little bit drying. And you need a sponge as well. Down here I've got a bucket of clean water as well for sponging and cleaning it off. So let's get started. So first of all, I'm going to take my pot and add just a small amount of the grout powder. You really don't need too much of this, just enough for your project. I mean, you can add in a little bit more than you think, but start off small and then add more. And then what I'm going to do is use the wet sponge to just drop a small amount of water into it, little by little, because you really want the grout to be mix up to a sort of toothpaste consistency so that it sticks to your spatula and isn't runny. But if it is runny, just add some more powder. So I've got a small amount of water in there. So that consistency at the moment is a little bit, although it's staying on the spatula, but I'd say that's still a little bit sloppy. So I'm going to add just the smallest little bit more powder. In there. Okay, so that is a much better consistency now. You can see that that sticks to the spatula. And mix that just to make sure there's no dry powder left in there. You can leave it to rest for a minute before you use it, just to make sure that everything is softened up. Okay, so now that's ready. I'm just going to put a blob of that onto the project. Get that out of the pot. Take that aside. Take the grout float, and then I'm just going to move that around in all different directions just to make sure that goes in all those gaps from every different angle. So go. And obviously at the moment you're covering your tiles, don't worry, because you will be cleaning them off afterwards. That's it. And then what you can do is you can use your squeegee on an angle just to take that grout off the surface, like so, and then scrape that back into your pot. And then we'll use some of that in a minute, going round the edges. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that that grout that's on the edges to just now go round the edge. Now that's had a few seconds sort of dry on the surface, just use the squeegee again, like that, to get off that little bit of excess grout. Now we can take our sponge. So when you use your sponge, you want to make sure that you've wrung out as much water as possible, so it's just a wet sponge, it's not soaking wet, just a lightly damp sponge. And then what we do is we just take our sponge and just gently wipe the surface. And then what we use is each sort of surface of the sponge, so you can go over it. That's it. And then once you've used all clean faces of the sponge, just rinse it out again. When you're doing this, you want to make sure you're not dragging the grout back out of all your joins, so you just want to wipe the surface gently. So I'm going to let that dry now. Just smooth the edges. So I'm going to let that dry for about 10 minutes, and I'm just going to buff the surface, and then that'll be ready for you to use. Enjoy with a nice cup of tea on top. Right, okay, so I've left that to dry now for about 10 minutes, and you can see that the surface has just gone sort of cloudy where the grout's dried on there. All you do now is take a soft cloth and just gently buff the surface, and that will come right off. And leave a nice shiny finish. You can leave that to dry again for another few minutes, and it may just film over again slightly, and then you just give it one final buff. And then that's your project finished. Thank you for joining me, and we look forward to seeing you in our academy.